So I'm here. This is my friend Kevin Rogers, and he is the founder of Copy Chief, my absolute favorite, not only copywriting resource on the internet, but just a general marketing treasure trove of gems. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. So I don't want to ruin the surprise on that. But Kevin, I'm here today to learn from you. What is this thing called copywriting?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big word. I think we've all heard it, but the heck is it?
It can be well confusing. The joke in the industry is that nobody knows what the heck we do. We tell them and they come to you 2 weeks later for legal advice. Hey, I got a thing that needs to be copywritten, and so
or a blog post or a social media post.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny word. So just to really break it down, in its, fundamentals, copy is a name for a piece of written material. And so like journalists would, they got to get their copy in by the deadline. That's their report is also known as copy, right? So technically copy can be any, sort of like professionally written piece of content meant to be published. I'd say is a fair to loose, definition. So copy can be also content writing, which is like a blog post, those kinds of things. But how we sort of think of copywriting and define it, and why copywriters, especially direct response copywriters, direct response meaning written to get an immediate action from the reader, is because it's measured on its ability to get that action. So if usually in marketing circles, when somebody says copywriter, it means somebody who writes words that sell products or get in action, get people to join a list and, all that good stuff. So copy is, salesmanship in print is, I think, Gary Halbert, the way he came up with that. And that's still one of the most accurate definitions.
And I think it's specifically in terms of the context of what we're doing here. And I tied it together in another bonus I did with Brian Kurtz, where the difference is, I think, is that measurability piece on the very tail end of it too. Like you said, we're promoting an action or a behavior.
Right.
And then you have to be able to measure it, and then you can, what is the word? It's
optimize. Yeah, right? we're obsessed with conversion rates, essentially, right? In the world of marketing and copywriting, it's like, we work so hard to get somebody to pay attention to anything we want to present to them, whether it's content, an offer, and so to win that battle is hard enough, and then to have somebody, and then to ruin the outcome of somebody having somebody's attention is like a bit of a crime in our circles.
How did you get involved with copy? Like, it's kind of such a weird little niche thing.
It is. Yeah, it's fascinating because everybody finds it in different ways. For me, to make a crazy long story short, I was between careers. I did stand-up comedy for a decade. I got very burned out being on the road. So I retired from that, and I was doing no resume jobs because the only resume I had was 18 to 28. I told jokes to drunks all over the country.
Huge demand on Indeed for that.
Yeah. Exactly. I couldn't even get hired at some hotels to park cars,
Yeah.
So an old friend of mine from comedy had some business acumen, and he had started his own marketing company. And he said to me, and it was, not a pleasant place to be, frankly. It involved a telemarketing arm, and it was a bit of a shady industry. It was timeshare resale. And he said, look, I know you don't know anything about what I do, and you might not currently have any interest, but I need someone I can trust to help me run this business. And I don't trust anyone who works for me right now. And he said, I'll pay you to just show up here every day, sit next to me. I know you like to write. You can start rewriting the website and just learn what I do and let's see where it goes from there. And then 3 months later, this guy is a big character and has a lot of stories. And with some varying degree of truth, he said, my doctor said that if I don't take some time off, I'm going to die. So he like doubled my pay. And keep in mind, I've just like had my first child and Bellman's pay ain't going to make it. And so now he said something like, you now make $800 a week and here's the keys to the building. Yeah, it was so it was scary and thrilling. But you know, the one thing I knew, Russ, was that what was missing from my life, from comedy to this next phase, was that I had to figure out business. I had no idea about how business worked or why some people gave other people money and what was the value exchange. I really I was on a quest to understand that. And I knew that I would learn that through running Bobby's company.
And that's how I got involved in, I think it was like the mid 90s. And I was looking for the book on my bookshelf. I got to get it out, but it was a book that was called Cash Copy. Have you ever seen that one?
I think I have. Yeah.
And I got this book and I was thinking the same thing, like how, as a business owner, what can I do to get people to buy my products? And here I got this Cash Copy book and it seemed like this, book of magic spells that could get people to take action and buy my stuff. And it literally had that feeling like it was kind of magic, right? Like there's these formulas and you use, psychology and all this different techniques. And lo and behold, it worked. And that was kind of my introduction, was that Cash Copy book. I should have it out somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is a magical thing, right?
It is pretty magical. And so, through that job, he hired a consultant who was a direct response junkie. And he's the one who sort of showed me the magic. He said, all right, you're a pretty good writer and you're learning. You seem to be interested in what I'm doing in this company, which is called direct response. And he said, you should look into copywriting. And he showed me a sales letter and I thought it was horrible. And I thought, this feels so scammy. Why would anybody respond to this? And then he said, you'll get it, and started showing me Gary Halbert letter. And then I found John Carlton, and suddenly now people I could really relate to and resonated with me. And then I started getting very excited. And then of course, then it looked hard to do because it is kind of hard to do. And, and that set me off on the adventure.
And so you, in your community, my perception of what you do is or how I describe you, I should say, is whenever a business owner asks me, well, who do you know for copy? I'm like, oh, you got a Kevin Rogers copy chief. Like you're almost like a matchmaker to the stars of copyright. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of what I do. And it is one of my passions. And so, when I came up with the idea for Copy Chief, it was for a couple of reasons. One was to solve a new problem that I had, which was I had accidentally created, well, I did it on purpose, but the 60-second sales hook became something that I really loved teaching and helping people with. And people wanted to pay me to do that for them, but it was very unscalable. And so one to many, James Schramko said, just model what I did and build a forum where you can teach all your stuff and people can pay a lot less to get it. And you can make a lot more to teach it. And it's like, wow, brilliant. So simple. And really did kind of work out that way. But the inspiration for the forum, the community aspect of it was, I would see every time I went to a conference, a good conference, or mastermind, Russ, like you and I have been part of together. That's where you see these connections being made, right? You see that over in the corner, there's the the business owner talking to the copywriter, and they're becoming new friends and realizing that, oh my God, this is you're the perfect person to go out and help me sell my stuff. And I'm thinking, man, this is, again, so unscalable. Like, does every copywriter have to invest in these masterminds and show up to these conferences? Is that the only way we can be client? What if I could recreate this cool energy, this intimacy, this safe space in a digital house? And that's what, and it's funny, man, because you have a concept like that and you go, all I can do is open the doors and see. I can't manufacture that. And that's sort of the amazing thing about Copy Chief and, going into our 7th year, is that I opened the doors to 100 people, and I didn't know most of them. And the people who came through those doors were amazing people who are now lifelong friends and people I've learned a lot from, and who have contributed trainings, the Ross O'Loughlin's and the Dan Ferraris and and it was amazing, and it continues to be amazing. We just attract a really high quality person, and trolls are never interested in us, and it's just perfect.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorites. So when you're in this matchmaking role or capacity, you obviously, I hope, have talked to complete strangers to this world of direct marketing and copywriting, right? Like I work with a lot of B2B type businesses.
Yeah.
And they have little to no exposure to actual copywriters.
Right.
So if you're talking to someone like this that has no exposure at all to really good marketing copy, right, and more often than not, they're typically in this client model where they have, half a dozen clients a year that they service. And the reason we usually get involved and start working with them is, they rely on this referral model, which is kind of like just waiting for the winds of fortune to blow your way. But now I'm urging them to, hey, if you want to formalize your marketing and actually create a system to fill that lead pipe up for you, having a good copywriter is essential.
Yeah. So
if you're working with a business owner like this, what do you typically try to get them to see? Like, what is the idea that maybe is missing from the traditional B2B world?
Yeah. In a word, I would say like humanity, empathy. Because the thing I always remind them is like, look, I get that traditionally the reason they think B2B is different is because, it's, we got to be professional here. And I mean, the worst thing that could happen is we look like we don't know what we're doing, and we're not the top experts in the world. And so to do a thing that humanize our big advantage is in direct response from B2C is that we humanize ourselves and we share our struggles and we explain, like, I was in a bad place, but here's what I discovered. And now my life is great. And I've taught it to other people. Now their lives are great. And maybe you'd like this. But in business, oh no, God, we could never admit that we were ever less than perfect. And so that's one thing. It's just like, remember that ultimately, some human has to read your offer and discover your offer, and then go sell it probably to somebody else who's going to hold the purse strings. And you got to help them get excited, just like why they buy stuff in their life, their life outside of business. So, the people you're talking to, they have Facebook accounts and they watch stupid videos and they watch Netflix, and there's a lot of things you can relate to them as and still be professional without sounding like like they're stuck in another meeting.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I've only ever met people. I've never actually met a business. Right. So it's a people to people business. It's a people to people thing. Like, there's no real such thing as business to business.
Right.
You're an individual selling to another individual. And so this formal art of copywriting has evolved, gosh, we're probably over around 100 years now, would you say?
Yep.
Right at about the 100-year mark.
Yep.
And the thing that's really cool about today's world is not only is the art form itself excelled to a point where it is really magical what can happen, but we also have that final connection piece where we can measure everything and see exactly, does this work better than this work, and down the road.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing. So you run a community of copywriters. And if I'm the business owner and I make the decision, okay, I need this copywriter to help me go create ads, help me with my website, maybe some brochures and whatnot. Can you walk me through kind of the thought process as a business owner I should take in approaching the hiring of a copywriter specifically?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question, because I think it is different than hiring other contractors or vendors. And I know people really just want to, especially in business, it's a bigger, faster moving machine, and we really just want to tick the boxes and have things done. But your relationship with a copywriter is unique because they are going to be speaking for you. And just like imagine if, you were hired to give an important speech at an industry conference, and for whatever reason, it was the day of your child's wedding, and you didn't want to not have the speech made, but you couldn't make it. And so how would you inform that person to go represent you to the best of, and a good, if you hired like the ultimate speech giver, they would understand everything about you and your company and their audience, and you would make sure that they had every word just right. But you would also have to trust them to get it. You wouldn't just hire an actor who wouldn't understand the nuance of your business. You would hire someone who had this amazing, special, unique blend of talents and experience to really get and show up and represent you. And that's what a copywriter kind of does. And so they need time with you. They need good research. They need inside your machine as much as you can give them.
Yeah. And that's the struggle I've seen in hiring copywriters with business owners is versus hiring a writer to just go out and write a blog post, right? Like they just go do a couple of Google searches, get some snippets, and you can put it together. In your marketing copy, and what I teach is, research is the biggest component of this. We may hire a copywriter who does nothing for 10, 14, 21 days, right? Like you're paying them to sit there and just learn about your business, whatever their research process is. And then they finally can sit down and start outputting this content or the copy. But that's kind of one of the big hurdles I see most business owners is they kind of expect the copywriter to have this skill set where they can just flip it on and tomorrow start kicking out copy for you.
Right. That's it. Exactly. And it's just not the same. That's why I say it's so different. Like, if you need graphics done and you fill out a quick sheet that says, here are the colors I like. And, you could maybe see something in a day or two. Right. Yeah. But with copy, like you said, it's like hiring a specialist to come in and understand. It'd be more like hiring a private detective. They're not going to solve the crime the next day. They're going to ask a lot of questions, and and it's like Columbo episode or Monk. That is actually the first time I thought of this analogy. It's quite good.
I did exactly. Me too. I'm like, Columbo doesn't show up with the solution in his pocket. He doesn't know who solved the crime. Right.
He just knows what he needs to know in order to catch the thief, right? Or the killer.
Ask the smart questions.
Right. And he can, and it's very much about reading people. And essentially it's a deduction. He's ticking people off the list as he goes until he hones in on that person. And I love Columbo because when he knows, and now it's going to be like, how do they slip? He drives them batty until they either like admit it. And he shows up at the restaurant where they're having dinner. I'm sorry, sir. There's one thing that's been bothering me. So it's very similar where, there is a puzzle to be put together here. And by the way, it's great to bring an outsider, a true, pro copywriter to come in from the outside of your company, because there's two levels of them understanding what you do and how to go sell it. Number one is when they don't know anything, when they don't have the curse of knowledge, and they're not already speaking the insider lingo and these things that can help or hurt us, but we have to do them selectively. And then pretty soon it's their job to get caught up to the level of knowledge they need to write intelligently about your industry and your product. But there's a real value in having them come in with those fresh eyes and going, well, if I don't understand this, even in B2B, someone might not understand this. So let's not assume. Absolutely. They can help you from the top down. Like most B2B businesses really struggle with even what is their offer. Yeah. It's not refined to a singular thing, Right. So, all right. So this brings us to the point of, if I've realized I want to hire a copywriter, what would you say is, I'm a business owner. I don't really know anything about the copywriter world. How do I have a bunch of copywriters sending me samples, but how do I grade them? How do I judge on maybe how I should hire someone like this? Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think you have to understand your product and why it sells enough to know what the triggers are. It's important to be open-minded, because a copywriter may see angles you didn't see before. But what I like to tell people is, if you've got it narrowed down to 2 or 3 and it's like, they all seem good, how do I choose? I like to hire each of them to do a critique, because then you'll see their brain at work on one of your existing ads. And I think that's when you'll see like who really gets it and who's just good at creating samples or sending me samples. So, I want to see them in action now. You can also ask them or pay them a fair amount to write something quick, that'll take them a couple hours. And I want to see them now, because a lot of copywriters with a lot of experience have a lot of great samples. And, I need to see their ability to critically think about my product to know they're the one. Well, I love the idea of a critique, right? Because then no one knows their business better than the founder of the business. And he or she may struggle with communicating that vision. But if you have half a dozen copywriters do a critique of, say, a web page or a pre-existing sales material, then for me, it would be really a simple process to say, well, this person gets it. This person doesn't. This person didn't really do any work. They just, use their red pen or whatever. Right. But that's a really great tool. Yep. You talked about money, how much to pay them, right? That's also, I think, one of the big 3 things with hiring a copywriter, because in my experience, copywriters range in skills and they range in cost, or price, I should say, not cost, because theoretically your copy should be an asset, not an expense. Yeah, right. Yep. Case in point, we ran, a long time ago, back in the day, we had a tea company, and we had the very own John Benson write us a sales letter. And this was about 10 years ago even. Mm. And even back then, he charged us $50,000 for one sales letter, which people are like, that's mind blowing, right? Yeah. But we understood the power of what that did. And that sales letter generated literally millions of dollars in sales for us. So that was a cheap investment in hindsight. But a brave investment, and that one that an uneducated person on direct response, you just wouldn't make. So that's my question to you. If you're talking to a business owner, how do I make the decisions around budgeting and cost and price? And do you have any guidance around that? Or it is the hardest one, because of course there's no menu. Right. I'll add a couple of you said they vary in experience and things. They also vary in circumstance. Correct. Yes. And so it's It's a negotiable thing, like you said, you can catch a guy or woman, a very experienced copywriter who's in a spot in life where they really might need the money. They may have enough acumen about your industry that it takes them half as much time as a different writer. And they're willing to. So I just want to point out that that's why it's nuanced, because again, these are specialists. What's the value of one of Columbo versus the guys from whatever show where Scooby Doo,
the Klondike Cops, yeah.
I guess but I will say that, so there's not a menu. I will say the best thing to do is probably get 3 quotes and see like, okay, is there a ridiculous range here, or are they all kind of in that space? The other thing to do, Russell, is like do the math. Let it be a math equation like it was for you. It's like, if you know the existing sales, and this is where that conversion rate and those things come into play. Like a good copywriter will charge you based on what they think the upside, the ROI for you will be. They just want a percentage. Copywriters have made a choice to not run a business and not be saddled with all the entrepreneurial pitfalls of running a business. They get to swing into your business, perform their special magic and make everybody money. And you get the most of it because you're doing the hard work of having the business and delivering the product. So if you're, at a current level of sales and you can see where increasing your conversion rate on an offer by X percent is going to equal X amount of money, wouldn't it be worth paying that much for, say, a month or even a couple months to that copywriter, and then getting all that free money for the rest of the year or however long that offer is going to be relevant, right? Yeah. And in the best circumstances, you can have them stay involved and come in and keep it fresh. And we call that beating the control. So the best performing ad, we call the control ad. You're always testing stuff against it, trying to beat it, trying to do better. And so, you could pay a certain percentage up front and pay, royalties. That's typically how it goes, depending on the lifespan of the offer. And so the most experienced copywriters will happily take a flat fee up front to basically cover their time to do the research and all those things. And then, just get paid some percentage on the back end of your sales, and makes it much more affordable to work with a copywriter.
How important is the research aspect of all this?
It's everything. It really is everything.
So for me, a business owner, I have to understand that this person I'm hiring, there's an expectation that they're going to need my time. They're going to need some of my team's time. If I have a marketing team, like they're going to have to be basically fairly involved in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to give them a liaison and an attentive liaison to your business. It'd be great if depending on how big the company is, but if they can get an hour on the phone with the CEO to ask them those, get the origin stories of the company. And, in the best case scenarios, you'll come out of that call reinvigorated about what you do and remembering why you did all this in the beginning and why it's so special, because they have to understand why your company, your product is uniquely positioned to help your prospect over every other one, right? And that getting to that story, it takes communication. You got to let them do their detective work.
Well, I hope that's in the first module in my course work is really working on your vision, mission, and values, because I think that all your subsequent marketing is a reflection or contained by that vision. And if that's not clear, it's going to be near impossible to have successful marketing down the road. We're coming up on an hour. I want to be really respectful of your time. I'm very grateful you're spending this time with us. Yeah, man. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up here. But if I'm the business owner, and I'm kind of on the fence, should I hire someone? Should I not hire someone? Do you have any last advice or, the 3 tips
Well, I'd say this, that let me give you the sort of the how Copy Chief is different and why it's a good resource, because it's funny because somebody just wrote to me the other day and said to them, "Hey, Kevin, I would be interested in joining your community if I could get support with improving copywriting for donor marketing to B2B space." And so he's basically like, "Can you help with that?" And what I said to him back was, the simple answer is yes. And that's because the proven principles of selling in print are universal across any market or niche. Our trainings are based on the proven principles, but go deeper on the nuanced techniques that can only come from testing lots of ads. And the other big benefit is that they can put their copy up for critique from our 1,000+ members, many of whom are likely to have insight to their market. And so that's the difference between just hiring somebody because somebody said they're good or they made you feel good on the phone, and being in a place where those people exist. It's also kind of like the advantage of hiring a neighbor. They're very less likely to screw you over because you share space, you live down the street. So that's why it's great to hire out of a community, So one thing you could do, to immediately get like value out of a place like Copy Chief is you become a member, you post up some of your copy and get for a critique and see who comes. It's very likely that somebody will come and give you this great, give you that critique that you otherwise would have paid the same for that a whole year of Copy Chief. And you'll go, wow, that's not only immediately helpful because I might apply some of the things they gave me, but this is the kind of person I need to talk to about writing for me.
Yeah, to me, it's a no-brainer on value because we're talking about something here that really can transform your business and has a measurable ROI on it. Yeah. And Copy Chief to me is not only a place to go to find, what I consider to be the best copywriters on the planet, but also, like you said, because I do work with a couple of companies now that they have hired copywriters, but they kind of want to bring it in-house to their own copy or to their own teams, right? Mm-hmm. And so you also afford or have the ability for my fledgling little copy ducklings to go and post and get critiques. And
right.
I mean,
yeah.
That's crazy value. Like there's no place you can go to get that done.
You're backed up. Exactly right. Like, and not to mention that you could hire junior copywriters that you already have on staff, or maybe somebody's a really good content writer and needs to learn the selling principles of direct response, and they could go through our trainings. And so it really is, dude. It's everything you could want in a copy resource. And, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying it's what we do.
I'll brag for you, man, because I love it. I've been in there for years, and it's hands down. It's literally, I have 4 bookmarks across the top of my browser here. Copy Chief is number 3.
Wow. Awesome. That's very flattering, dude. Honestly,
well, I'm sincere in it too, and I hope we can. We'll talk about this later, but I hope we can, come up with some sort of offer or incentive for people watching this, to try out and get involved with Copy Chief too. So
sure, yeah,
we can offer, your 60-second sales hook, whatever. We'll come up with that later, and just below this video you can find the details on what we come up with. But anything you want to throw out there in terms of, gosh, I wish I knew this when I got started in copywriting, or from a business owner's perspective?
One thing that comes to mind that I really had to work towards evolving, and it's funny, I'm working with one of the legends of our industry right now, who's just now releasing his own product and struggling with this in a way that you wouldn't expect someone who makes their living at sales to struggle with. And that is this. We always lead with integrity. That's another thing about Copy Chief. It's a broad term, copywriter, and there's all kinds of people, just like in all industry. There's good and there's bad. But you probably can sell harder than you are right now without doing anything wrong or looking bad to your customers. I think particularly in B2B, there's a real fear of seeming a little too salesy, but we're in business and making sales is how we grow. And so having direct calls to action, it isn't hypey and scammy looking. It's what people need to know what to do. We're humans and we're looking to be led. And so if we're doing our job of getting somebody excited about what we have, and then we get all wishy-washy on the action they should take to get it, that's a fail. So I would just try ramping it up just a little bit, and obviously not doing anything that makes you uncomfortable or certainly pushes any envelopes in compliance. But most people can get a little more direct than they're being.
Totally, especially in this world of B2B. I love the professional writing where there's no pronouns, there's no I, you, we, or everything is us and they, and totally. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any good jokes?
I don't keep
totally out of left field. I know, but
jokes handy. I have a friend, Lou, who's the best, and I ask him this every time we talk. I get him whether I want him or not, but dude, I just don't keep jokes handy, like jokes. I'm sorry.
Mine are all dad jokes.
Yeah, I don't mind a dad joke, but Lou told me one the other day, but the thing about having a joke is you got to have it ready. You can't go, I heard a good one the other day and try to oh wait, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't a pig. It was a dog. It was
yeah. And it's situational too, right? Like if you're in the wrong situation, the wrong joke is not going to work.
Exactly. So sorry, I don't have a joke.
That's all right. I will also, maybe we can throw down some of your recorded comedy because I've seen your stand.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
All right. Kevin, thank you very, very much for doing this.
My pleasure, Russell.
I hope everyone watching this gets a tremendous amount of value about how to go find a copywriter, why that's important for your business, and where to go find a copywriter.